Welcome back to our channel, everyone. Today is a beautifully moody Tuesday, the kind of day where the gray skies perfectly match the heavy, tense atmosphere hanging over our favorite residence. Grab a warm cup of coffee, settle into your favorite spot, and let us dive deep into the latest shadows creeping through the gates because things are getting incredibly dark and psychologically twisted. There is a specific kind of terror that comes with an anniversary, especially when that anniversary marks the absolute worst day of your entire life. For Chelsea, the 1 year mark of her horrific kidnapping by Allison is not just a date on the calendar, it is a visceral, suffocating weight that is dragging her right back into the darkness. We are watching a woman who has tried so hard to rebuild her life, to launch a brand, to move forward, suddenly waking up screaming in the dead of night, drenched in cold sweat, completely paralyzed by the phantom grip of her past. The trauma is so raw and so present that it feels like the walls are closing in on her all over again. I can't help but feel like the writers are purposefully blurring the lines between Chelsea's psychological unraveling and an actual physical threat looming in the shadows. When someone experiences a trauma, that profound being stalked, manipulated, and held hostage in a remote cabin by someone she thought was a friend, the mind never truly forgets. The body keeps the score, and right now, Chelsea's body is screaming that the danger is not over. Then come the phone calls, the absolute spine chilling dread of picking up the receiver only to hear nothing but heavy, deliberate breathing on the other end before a sudden, sharp click. It is the kind of classic psychological warfare that makes your blood run cold. Chelsea is immediately convinced that Allison is on the other end of the line, and honestly, who could blame her? The timing is far too perfect, far too cruel to be a mere coincidence, but it seems that we are being pushed to question everything we see and hear. Is Allison actually out of custody? Did she escape? Or did some slick lawyer find a loophole to get her released without anyone notifying Chelsea? The justice system in this town has always been notoriously leaky, and the idea of Allison roaming free, hiding in plain sight, and slowly turning the dial up on Chelsea's paranoia is terrifying. Yet, because we have not seen a single concrete piece of evidence proving it is Allison, we are left in this agonizing state of limbo alongside Chelsea, unable to trust the shadows. Kat has immediately stepped up to be the anchor in Chelsea's storm, providing a desperate source of comfort and fierce protection. Their bond has always been the emotional core of their dynamic, especially with the launch of their joint purse line. But watching Kat try to guide Chelsea through this panic attack is both heartwarming and deeply concerning. Kat is practically demanding that Chelsea face her fears head on, urging her not to let the ghosts of the past dictate her future. But maybe I'm overthinking this, but is Kat really in the best mental state to be anyone's psychological anchor right now? Let us not forget that Kat is still reeling from her own massive trauma, the liver transplant, the severe surgical complications, the out of body alternate reality she experienced, and her increasingly erratic, impulsive behavior ever since she woke up. Kat is trying to project strength to be the shield Chelsea needs, but Kat's own foundation is incredibly shaky. It feels like the blind leading the blind through a minefield of PTSD. This brings us to the sudden and incredibly disruptive presence of Smitty. We know Smitty is a relentless investigative journalist, a man who cannot leave a stone unturned if he senses a story, but his recent actions have unwittingly thrown gasoline on the fire of Chelsea's anxiety. What exactly is Smitty digging into that has triggered such a severe reaction from both Chelsea and Kat? We know he has been obsessed with exposing the underground plasma ring and tracking down missing persons, but there's a chance that his relentless probing has accidentally intersected with Allison's case. Did Smitty uncover a sealed document? Did he ask a question about the police protocols surrounding stalkers that made Chelsea realize just how vulnerable she still is? Smitty does not operate with a gentle touch. He asks the hard, blunt questions, and in doing so, he has inadvertently shattered the fragile illusion of safety that Chelsea had managed to build around herself over the past year. The fallout from this anxiety spike is rippling outward, causing major fractures in other relationships, most notably igniting a fierce clash between Kat and Nicole. We have watched the tension brewing between these two, but this situation with Chelsea seems to be the catalyst for a full-blown confrontation. Nicole has always been the more grounded, pragmatic voice in the room, especially lately as she navigates her new exclusive romance and her nomination for chief of staff. Nicole likely views Kat's handling of Chelsea's trauma as reckless or enabling. What if Nicole believes that Kat's intense, erratic energy is actually feeding Chelsea's paranoia rather than soothing it? Nicole might be pushing for professional psychiatric help for Chelsea, while Kat, fiercely loyal and deeply defensive, views any outside intervention as a betrayal or a dismissal of Chelsea's very real fears. The clash between Kat's emotional volatility and Nicole's clinical pragmatism is creating a toxic environment right when Chelsea needs stability the most. Something about this doesn't sit right with me, though, when I look at the bigger picture of these anonymous calls. We are all so quick to assume that Allison is the one breathing into the phone because it is the most logical, terrifying answer. But in this town, the most obvious answer is rarely the correct one. What if the caller is not Allison at all? What if someone else is exploiting the anniversary of the kidnapping to gaslight Chelsea, to keep her off balance, to distract her from something else entirely? We know Chelsea has been actively investigating the suspected affair between her father's wife, Haley, and the shady cousin. Haley is ruthless, manipulative, and absolutely capable of psychological torture if it means protecting her secrets. Could Haley be orchestrating these calls to push Chelsea into a mental breakdown, discrediting her as a paranoid, traumatized mess so that no one will believe her accusations? It is a dark theory, but it perfectly aligns with Haley's history of eliminating threats by any means necessary. I keep coming back to this idea that the trauma itself is the actual villain in this current chapter. The human mind is a powerful, terrifying thing when it is broken. Chelsea is so consumed by the fear of Allison's return that she might be misinterpreting every shadow, every strange noise, every dropped call as a direct threat. The show is doing a masterful job of putting us right inside Chelsea's fractured psyche. When she wakes up from those nightmares, the terror is so palpable that we, as viewers, feel our own heart rate spike. We want to believe her, we want to protect her, but we are also forced to question her reliability as a narrator of her own life. Is there a physical stalker standing outside her window, or is the stalker living entirely inside her head, born from the unhealed wounds of a year ago? The ambiguity is what makes this storyline so incredibly compelling and so agonizing to watch unfold. The dynamic between Chelsea and Kat is also shifting under this immense pressure. Kat is trying to be the fierce protector, the one who stands between Chelsea and the monsters in the dark. But Kat's recent impulsive decisions, buying luxury condos on a whim, rejecting marriage proposals, acting out of character, suggest that she is desperately searching for control in her own life. By focusing all her manic energy on saving Chelsea, Kat might be avoiding her own unresolved issues surrounding her near-death experience. This creates a dangerous codependency. If Kat convinces Chelsea that the danger is real so that Kat can play the hero, they might both end up spiraling into a shared delusion. The tension with Nicole only highlights this. Nicole sees the cracks in Kat's armor and is likely trying to sound the alarm, only to be met with Kat's defensive fury. It is a powder keg of unresolved trauma, and Smitty's accidental interference was just the spark needed to set it off. As we watch Chelsea struggle to distinguish between a genuine physical threat and the haunting echoes of her past, the truth might be more complicated than it looks on the surface. Perhaps Allison is still securely locked away, but she has a disciple, a follower, or someone she met in custody who is carrying out her twisted work on the outside. We have seen the influence that charismatic, dangerous individuals can have in this universe. If Allison managed to manipulate someone else into terrorizing Chelsea on the anniversary, it would explain the calls without requiring Allison to have physically escaped. It would also mean that Chelsea's instincts are dead, right? The danger is real. It is connected to Allison, but the face of the threat has changed. This would validate Chelsea's terror while still delivering a massive, unexpected twist that pulls the rug out from under all of us. Every time the phone rings now, the tension is unbearable. The silence on the line speaks volumes, echoing the silence of the cabin where Chelsea was held captive. The writers are forcing Chelsea to confront the darkest corner of her mind, to look at the monster under the bed and figure out if it has teeth or if it is just a shadow cast by her own trauma. Kat will fight to the death for her, but Kat's sword is heavy and her aim is currently unsteady. Nicole will try to impose order and logic on a situation that defies both, leading to inevitable heartbreak and fractured friendships. And Smitty, ever the hound on the scent, might just stumble into the truth of the phone calls, but at what cost to Chelsea's fragile sanity? I might be wrong, but I feel like we are building toward a massive psychological break, a moment where Chelsea will have to stand completely alone, face the darkness, and finally answer the phone with a demand for the truth. Until then, we are all just waiting, holding our breath, listening for the click on the other end of the line.